So it might not shock you to hear that Canadian politicians and what they've been doing in Canada right now is embarrassing, but this has been taken to a whole nother level.
We literally have the commissioner for the RCMP in the room. We have a staff sergeant from the RCMP in the room, and we have these Liberals right there. The Liberal Vice Chair, Mona Fortier, just moved to adjourn the committee. These Liberals voted to shut it down. Mike Callaway, absolutely unacceptable. Look at them.
And this is just one part of a string of some pretty shocking situations that have been happening in recent government meetings, with one session ending just minutes after it started following accusations of mismanagement, and another entirely separate issue that has revealed a string of shell companies that are extracting Canadian public dollars from multiple taxpayer-funded projects. And to be honest, it makes me feel embarrassed that these are the people that are leading our country. And I think you'll feel the same way after I show you a few things, but not in the way you might expect. The first issue surrounds one of the most notable political controversies of the past 5 years, leading to the firing and resignation of many of the Prime Minister's top ministers and advisors. And that controversy is known as SNC-Lavalin. And you might be saying, Russell, that happened years ago. Why are you bringing it up now? Well, a set of files was just revealed last week that makes things seem quite a lot worse. But before we get into that, I want to give you a super quick recap about what exactly this issue was if you weren't following it at the time, because once you understand this, everything's going to make a lot more sense. SNC-Lavalin is an engineering company that was accused of fraud and corruption in connection with about $50 million in payments made to the Libyan government. Now, there was supposed to be a trial about this corruption, but obviously the company didn't want that to happen, and apparently neither did the Liberal government that was in power when this happened in 2018. And I promise this all relates to that video I showed you at the beginning of this video, because to make a long story short, the whole controversy arose from members of the government, including the Prime Minister himself, allegedly applying pressure on the Attorney General to allow for SNC-Lavalin, this company, to get away with just paying a small fine instead of going to court. If you didn't know already, a sitting Prime Minister seeking to alter the legal decisions of an Attorney General, well, that's a big no-no. So the RCMP investigated the issue and decided not to pursue any criminal charges and to close their investigation as of this past June 2023. But some shocking new details were just released after an organization forced the RCMP to release more information about the investigation and why it was dropped. Take a look at this. An organization called Democracy Watch filed a request for information via the Access to Information Act, and well, they got around 1,800 pages of records from the RCMP. Now, we're going to go over some of the highlight revelations from these documents. The first one that stands out is that over this 4-year investigation, the RCMP only talked to 3 witnesses concerning obstruction allegations. We'll go through this rapid fire so we can get through it. The records also show that the RCMP inside of the report called this just an assessment instead of calling it an investigation, even though it was an investigation. The Democracy Watch here clearly thinks that this is just so that they could say in the media that, hey, we're not actually investigating, this is just an assessment. But this is where things get a lot more shocking, because over this 4-year period, the RCMP just accepted that the government didn't want to share much information about what happened, and they didn't apply for any kind of search warrant to try to get any more information from the government about what actually happened throughout this situation. Instead, the RCMP took the public claims from the people that they were investigating and used that as part of the investigation. Now, of course, the people that are being investigated and are being sort of interviewed about this stuff, well, they're gonna try to make themselves look as good as possible in the best light as possible. And it's those statements that the RCMP took into consideration when creating this report. And finally, and this one kind of blows my mind, the RCMP actually received the fully completed report in March of 2021, but didn't determine until January 2023 to make its decision about this, even though there was no new information included in this report over those 2 years, and they took until June to announce to the public, hey, we're closing down this investigation. Things might already be smelling a little bit fishy to you, but now to amplify that stink level a little bit, you have to also consider that the commissioner of the RCMP, well, they're appointed by the Prime Minister, essentially. Here it says that the commissioner is appointed by the Governor and Council on the recommendation of the Prime Minister to hold office during pleasure. Essentially, this just means that the cabinet minister responsible for appointing the commissioner of the RCMP is basically told told by the Prime Minister who they're going to be appointing to be the commissioner. And now as the RCMP is releasing these details, the commissioner is saying, well, yeah, we're comfortable with the end result of this investigation, okay? So after all of this new information that we just went over was released, well, one of the committees in the House of Commons, the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, called the commissioner of the RCMP in for questioning. But this is, again, like I said, where all the heat starts on this situation. Let me explain the timeline here because it has people pretty pissed off. I think showing you this on a calendar is going to make a lot more sense because these new documents that we just went over were released on Monday the 16th of this month. Then the head of this committee said, hey, maybe we should talk to the RCMP, the commissioner, and figure out what's going on here. And he allegedly invited the RCMP commissioner on the 18th to come talk to this committee on the 23rd, Monday of this week. Now, the committee head told the other members of the committee only on Friday, this past Friday, that, hey, instead of doing what we were going to do before, we're now going to talk to the RCMP on Monday. Now, many Liberal parliamentarians who are part of this committee, as well as the NDP in the bloc, were pretty pissed off that they were only told on Friday that they'd be doing this on the coming Monday. Now keep this timeline in mind because on this past Monday, they brought in the RCMP commissioner, and then immediately some people on the committee said, let's just cancel this whole meeting because we didn't have enough notice, enough time to prepare our comments and prepare our questions for the RCMP commissioner. So we're just gonna, even though he's here in the room, we're gonna cancel the whole thing. Look at this.
Based on this reasoning, I would like to adjourn the meeting.
Well, Chair, that's not how these meetings are conducted. You read your remarks. She interrupted you.
It's not.
The witnesses were to give.
want to hear what he has to say.
The witnesses were to give testimony, and now we have government members looking to shut down a hearing on a very serious matter with respect to a criminal investigation into the Prime Minister, and we have the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at the table. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable.
Now, this is where two sides kind of emerge, because if you're on the side of the Liberal minister, you're saying, hey, these Conservatives, they're trying to smear the Prime Minister by not giving us enough time to put together our questions and enough notice to know that the RCMP Commissioner is coming in to talk about these new documents that came out. They're kind of pissed, they feel blindsided, so they vote to adjourn the meeting, and that's exactly what happens. The meeting is shut down even though everyone's there. They only sit in their seats for 5 minutes, and then they all get up and leave. Now, so that's what the Liberals are thinking, is like, hey, you're not being fair, you're not giving us enough time. But on the other side of things, do people really think that they don't have the time to go over the things that they need to go over to talk to these people over the course of a weekend? Remember, they were told on Friday that they'd be doing this on Monday. Are they just saying, hey, that's still not enough time for us? These are where the two different sides start to emerge. And in my eyes, regardless of what you think about this situation, all sides look like absolute idiots here. For the Liberals, the NDP, and the Bloc, voting to adjourn makes them look like they couldn't get a few questions together and read the new documents over the weekend ahead of this meeting. But on the Conservatives' end, it kind of makes them look like they're unaware of the potential committee procedures and standards that actually allowed for this meeting to be adjourned with the support of the other three parties. But regardless, the meeting is adjourned, and the Conservatives get pretty pissed off about it.
We literally have the Commissioner for the RCMP in the room. We have a staff sergeant from the RCMP in the room, and we have these Liberals right there. The Liberal Vice Chair, Mona Fortier, just moved to adjourn the committee. These Liberals voted to shut it down. Mike Callaway, Parn Baines, hand him off, Iker Khalid, Mona Fortier. That's absolutely unacceptable. Look at them. They're very proud to cover up the corruption of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Just moments ago, these Liberals shut down the hearing, and so we had the Commissioner of the RCMP. He was right there just a moment ago, and that's what transparency and accountability looks like after 8 years of Justin Trudeau.
Now, there's no doubt that things were handled a little bit sketchily here, given the info in the documents that were released last week and all the points that we went over about the completion of the RCMP investigation. And yet, at the same time, the way the Conservatives handled the situation leaves a lot to be desired. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that there's a chance this was more of a political move from the Conservatives thinking, let's call these RCMP officials in last minute. It's a win-win for us, right? We either get to hear from them about these new documents and question them on it without the other parties having as much time as they typically would to prepare, or on the other hand, they vote to adjourn the meeting, and now we get to shout and be loud about collusion, corruption, and cover-ups, right? So either way, it's a win for the Conservatives narratively. It just blows my mind, but would you believe me that this wasn't the only funny business that went on in committees this week? Did you happen to catch this one? If you haven't been following, many politicians are concerned about the process of developing the ArriveCan app, the application that was designed to help the Canada Border and Security Agency manage the COVID policy and border crossing during the pandemic. Now, the main issue here is that two individuals were paid up to $2.7 million to be middlemen on this project, never even doing any coding or development for the app. Here's a clip from one of my previous videos that I made when this was all going down in the first place, breaking down exactly what happens here, and it's going to help you understand what just happened a lot better.
How many employees do you have?
We have 2 employees, myself and my business partner.
Okay. Your work for the Government of Canada, you're the broker, the middleman between the government and the service provider, is that correct?
Essentially, yeah, they would come to us with the requirements they ask for, and we facilitate that.
GC Strategies has a relationship with the government, at the very least, that the government trusts them to do this type of work, and they get this contract for $9 million to develop the ArriveCan app, but they actually don't know how to develop apps at all, and instead they have knowledge of a bunch of other people that do have that knowledge, and they can assemble a team to work on that contract, so they might subcontract out this contract and pay a bunch of different subcontractors a portion of that $9 million, maybe to build out the front-end application for the website, building out the mobile app, building out the back end, and then maybe another subcontractor to integrate this application with all of the very antiquated systems that CBSA might be using. And for putting together this team of subcontractors, GC Strategy says they take anywhere between 15 to 30% of the contract's value. At 15% as a sort of commission here for putting together the team, GC Strategies would get paid $1.35 million on the low end, and on the high end it would be double that, $2.7 million for putting together this team. And remember, this is $2.7 million to GC Strategies, a company of only 2 people. And we'll get into why things have gotten a lot worse as of recently, but the big question was, how did GC Strategies, this firm, secure the contract? And why does the Government of Canada allow for such large extraction of public funds from middlemen? Do these middlemen really bring that much value by bringing together the team that does the actual work? And is the Government of Canada really unable to internally source this kind of management work without paying insider consultants and contractors? This was all reopened after just last week the Globe and Mail reported that the RCMP was actively reinvestigating this issue after some new allegations. Now, these new allegations are from the company that actually does the work on some of these projects called Bolter. Now, they were working on a different development project, but it has connections to some of the same companies that are extracting money just as middlemen. They say that they were pressured into using GC Strategies as a middleman by the people that they thought they were going to be working with. They had secured this contract with the Canadian Border Security Agency, and then the CBSA Director General at the time urged them, Bottler, this development company, to please work with Christian and let Christian work his magic, Christian being one of the 2 guys at GC Strategies. And they also alleged that there were multiple more layers of sort of shell companies that their contracts were run through to extract these kinds of commissions, saying that GC Strategies wasn't the only company here, but their work was also run through a company called Dalian and a third company called Coradix, which share the same office, these 2 individual companies that are both along this chain of companies that are extracting commissions from putting together the team to actually do the work. Now, obviously, that led to politicians wanting to reopen this conversation with all this new information, and it led to them questioning the people at the CBSA, asking who allowed for this decision to be made, who allowed for there to be this many layers of contracts just to get to the people actually doing the work.
Well, the fact that 2 people were paid over $11 million to do no work and subcontract. The CBSA worked very closely with PSPC and all the rules governed by PSPC on all of these engagements.
Yeah, but this is sort of process mumbo jumbo. I think people would want to know. They got paid to do nothing. Why were they hired?
I believe.
Who made the decision? Let me just ask that. Who made the decision?
I believe, as my colleague at CBSA has said, that this is currently under investigation.
So you don't know who made the decision. So none of you know who made the decision to hire these two guys.
I can say, based on memory, that my team made the decision.
Well, who?
Who made the final decision? Who sent the email?
At this time, to my knowledge, I do not know, and it's part of the investigation that's currently underway.
It seems like a system that's so bureaucratic that nobody knows or is willing to take accountability for all of this money that's going to people that aren't doing any work along the sort of path as it gets to the people that are actually doing the work. And like as a result, government dollars are being spent at a far higher rate than they should be for the work that's being done. And I thought this excerpt from the Globe and Mail article put it really well. Duff Conacher, the co-founder of Democracy Watch, the same organization that actually released all those documents from the RCMP about the first story, well, they told MPs that the government's reliance on IT staffing firms that then subcontract work to others should be ended. Everything should be changed to eliminate these middle people and just have companies who are actually doing the work bidding on the contract, he said. The system is the scandal. That's gold. The system is the scandal. Expect more scandals because the system encourages it. It's a system that allows people to skim Canadian public dollars, our dollars, by people who have the relationships and know-how to land these lucrative middlemen contracts, where they don't even need to do the work, especially given the allegations that the top public officials, the CBSA general, actually directed the companies to work with these middlemen, even though they were already in communication with the companies that ended up doing the work. It's messed up. So whether it's the political theater of all the different parties coming into these committee meetings and wasting time, or it's this corruption in the system is the scandal, like we just said, it seems more and more like we're just going to continue to be embarrassed again over by the people that we're putting in charge of running our country. And it's gotten me pretty frustrated. And try not to be too negative, but I've got to talk about this stuff as I see it. But I'm curious what you think about all of this. So what do you think about the situation with the RCMP commissioner sort of being sent out from the meeting after only 5 minutes? Do you think that the Conservatives were on the right side of that, or maybe the Liberals were right in saying he didn't give us enough time here to prepare? I'm curious what you think about that, as well as this ArriveCan app situation. What have I gotten right? Am I on the right track here? What have I gotten absolutely wrong? Because that's possible too. Let me know down in the comments below. I read every single one of them and try to get back to a bunch of them. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel to keep on supporting Canadian content just like this. And with all that said, thanks so much for watching. I really hope this video helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.